My grandson's shocking betrayal. You're not family, the devastating truth revealed at 3 a.m. It was a cold, moonlit night when Sarah got the call that shattered her world. At 3 a.m., the phone shattered the silence, pulling her into a dark whirlwind. You're not family, he had said, and the words cut deeper than any knife. The betrayal surged through her veins like ice, leaving her breathless and gripped by an unsettling dread. How could her beloved grandson say something so horrible? What truth hid beneath the surface of that chilling statement? As she sat on the edge of her bed, emotion churned inside her, a mix of anger, confusion, and heartbreak. The house creaked eerily around her, shadows flickering in the corners like lurking spirits. Every creak echoed her racing heart, blending with the rhythm of her thoughts. Just hours before, laughter had filled that home. Family dinners, stories shared over pie, the warmth of togetherness. But it felt like a dream now, evaporating like morning mist. The walls themselves seemed to whisper secrets, drawing her deeper into the mystery. She could almost hear a strange melody, a haunting lullaby that made her skin crawl. What dark truth had come to light, and what did it mean for her family? In her mind's eye, she replayed the moments leading to that night, every shared laughter, every hug. Something changed. Something clicked into place, painting over those joyful memories with strokes of doubt. Her grandson, usually bright-eyed and eager, had grown half-shadowed, a secret glint in his eyes that now twisted her stomach. Had he been plotting this all along? Or was he a victim of something sinister, something bigger than either of them could grasp? Then, a chill swept through the room as if a ghost had brushed past. Suddenly, a shuddering breath escaped her lips, and she felt the air grow thick with tension. The faint sound of footsteps echoed from the hallway, unsettling her further. Was someone else awake? Was there an intruder between the walls, or just the weight of her fears? Before she could unravel it all, the phone slipped from her fingers, clattering to the floor and shattering the fragile moment. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the echo of her heartbeat thundered in her ears, she reached for the phone, her trembling hand barely steady. Clenching her jaw, she knew she couldn't just sit there. The truth was waiting, lurking like the shadows, ready to pounce. Was it actually betrayal, or was hope just around the corner? The night was far from over, and she could feel the grip of destiny tightening around her throat. What awaited her in the dark, hidden by the veil of night? Heart pounding, Sarah finally steadied her breath and rose from the edge of the bed. The room felt charged, alive with an energy she couldn't quite understand. She felt like a soldier preparing for battle in a war of emotions. Gripping the edge of the bedside table, she took a deep breath, throwing a glance to the darkened hallway that loomed before her like an ominous path. Footsteps again. This time, they were sharper, a bit more decisive. Were they coming closer? The instincts of a protective grandmother kicked in. Was her grandson in danger, or was he the danger? She had to know. There had to be an explanation for those cruel words, something buried deep beneath the surface which was beyond this chill of betrayal. As she stepped into the hallway, the wooden floorboards creaked under her feet, betraying her approach. Shadows twisted around her, dark corners expanding and retracting like some living creature, waiting for her to make a misstep. She could taste the tension in the air, and it tasted like despair. A shiver coursed down her spine as she reached the end of the foyer. The house felt too quiet now, the familiar hum of night replaced with an unsettling stillness. Even the wind outside seemed to hold its breath. "Jake?" she called, her voice barely above a whisper, echoing off the walls like a sacrificial offering to the unseen. She steadied herself against the wall, her mind racing. What had he discovered? What secret had he chosen to reveal, laced with such bitterness? The memory of his innocent laughter felt like a ghost, haunting her. The only response was a faint sound, a muffled murmur from the living room, where the shadows pooled thickest. Sarah hesitated, wrestling with her instinct to retreat, to hide from the impending doom, but curiosity clawed at her. She needed to uncover what was going on. With determination, she moved forward, each step feeling weighted and heavy, like trudging through mud. As she peered around the corner into the living room, she squinted through the shadows. The scene unfolded before her like a slow-motion nightmare. Jake stood there, a figure almost lost in darkness, speaking to someone she couldn't see. The flickering light from the fireplace danced across the walls, morphing Jake into a mixture of boy and dark enigma. "I can't take it anymore. Grandma will never understand." His voice, usually bright, sounded hollow and defeated. Who was he talking to? Sarah strained to listen. The exchange was soft but emotionally charged, laced with secrets dripping like thick syrup. Then, from the corner of shadow, a second figure slid into view, someone entirely unfamiliar. A chill gripped her heart. Who were they, and why was Jake confiding in them? Was this the root of his betrayal? With renewed vigor, she stepped back, desperately scanning around her for a way to overhear more. There had to be a key to unlock this vicious puzzle. Little did she know, as she tried to find her place closer to the truth, she was not the only one with secrets waiting to be unveiled. But just as she lifted her foot to step into the living room, the unexpected sound of the front door creaking open froze her blood. Who was this late at night, and what did they want? Was this new visitor part of the secret, or did they bring trouble into the already darkening night? The ghostly grip of fear tightened around her heart, as she realized the night of revelations was only just beginning. The door swung open, an unsettling creak breaking the thick tension that hung in the air. Sarah's heart raced as she shifted from the living room doorway. Was it too late to retreat? Each moment felt stretched, like a rubber band straining to snap. She barely dared to breathe, fearing that even a whisper would shatter the fragile web of secrecy that a shadow entered, silhouetted against the moonlight, flooding in a tall figure with an angular frame, the faint outline of a hat pulled low. Sarah squinted, trying to make sense of the intruder. Who were they? The new arrival scanned the room, and Sarah could swear their gaze flicked right past her, like she didn't exist. "Jake!" The figure called, and it sent a vibration down to her core. Jake turned toward the sound, relief washing over his face. "You made it." His voice was laced with unexpected joy that made Sarah's stomach churn. Why was he so pleased? Who was this person, and what had they done to him? "Of course I did. You think I would miss this?" The stranger stepped fully into the dim light of the room, revealing the glint of a metallic pin on their lapel. A cult-like symbol, familiar yet twisted, something she had seen once in a dusty book tucked away on a forgotten shelf. "Grandma doesn't know," Jake replied, his tone dropping almost to a conspiratorial whisper. Sarah's heart hammered louder, each beat thrumming like a warning bell. "Good," the stranger said, a hint of menace curling around their words. "It's better that way. She doesn't need to be involved." Involved in what? The questions swirled in her mind, drowning out the narration of her own thoughts. What did they mean? "Jake," she finally called out, breaking the spell of secrecy. Her voice wobbled, fear choking her words, yet she had no choice. "What are you doing? Who is this?" Both figures froze, their camaraderie shattered by her interruption. Jake's face contorted in surprise, shifting from elation to dread in an instant. He seemed to stumble over his words. "Grandma." Wait, but it was too late. The stranger distractedly waved a hand toward Jake, urging him to remain silent. "You shouldn't have come here, old woman," they said, their voice low and chilling. Old woman? A wave of indignation surged within her, but the fear lodged in her throat kept her words at bay. She half expected them to lunge forward, but they merely stood, a dark sentinel of her worst fears. "What is happening? Why are you talking about me like I'm not here?" She forced the words out, her hands trembling at her sides. The figure turned to her, a smirk creeping across their lips, illuminating eyes that held no warmth. "Because you're not part of this, Sarah. You never were. But we can fix that." "Fix that?" A sliver of dread sliced through her. What did they mean, fix? Jake's shoulders drooped under the weight of silence, and Sarah felt her world tilt. She reached towards him, fear gripping her heart. "Jake, please. You can tell me." But before he could respond, a loud crash resonated from the kitchen, followed by the unmistakable sound of smashing glass. What was that? Panic washed over her. The stranger's expression darkened. Looks like we're out of time. Run, Jake shouted, his eyes wild, desperation coloring his voice. The chaos spiraled out of control as Sarah's instincts kicked in. She had to find her grandson. But as she took a step towards the chaos, the front door slammed shut, sealing their fate. Just like that, the night plunged deeper into uncertainty. Clutching her chest, Sarah was filled with a mix of dread and hope. What other secrets lay in the shadows waiting to be uncovered? Jake's fearful voice called to her. But could she trust him or anyone anymore? As the flickering flames from the fireplace cast eerie shadows on the walls, Sarah braced herself. The night was far from over. What awaited her in the darkness? The adrenaline coursed through Sarah's veins as she darted toward the kitchen. Each step echoed with urgency, the wooden floor creaking beneath her weight, a reminder of how fragile her safety had become. Her heart pounded heavily in her chest, the familiar rhythm now replaced by a frantic drum. "Jake!" she yelled, her voice cracking as she broke away from the living room. She needed to find him. She needed to know he was safe. But every inch toward the kitchen filled her with dread. Beneath the clamor of urgency, another fear festered. What if she didn't like what she would find? As she approached the kitchen entrance, the sight that greeted her sent a chill creeping down her spine. The shards of glass glittered on the floor like jagged teeth, remnants of a shattered plate. But that wasn't all. She noticed the back window was wide open, curtains flapping like the wings of some horrid creature trying to escape. Breath hitching in her throat, she crouched by the broken plate, her eyes scanning the floor for clues. Had someone entered through here? Had Jake let them in? "Jake?" she whispered again, fear threading her voice like a noose. The longer the silence stretched, the heavier it weighed. Suddenly, the sound of hurried footsteps made Sarah stiffen. "Over here." A voice, one she couldn't mistake. It was Jake. She turned just in time to see him slip from behind the kitchen island, his face pale and drawn, eyes wide with a mix of fear and defiance. "Grandma, you need to get out. What is going on? Why is this happening?" Her words rushed out in a torrent, a desperate plea for understanding. "It's them," he whispered, glancing nervously towards the living room. "They're coming for you and me." "Who are they? What do they want?" The questions piled on, her head swirling as she grappled with the chaos around her. Jake took a shaky breath and stepped closer, the urgency rising in his voice. "Listen, I didn't want you to get involved, but there is something you don't know. About my dad, about our family. They want us for something bigger, a part of that cult." A knot formed in Sarah's stomach. All those quiet moments spent reminiscing, the family dinners, the warmth in their home, it all felt like a crushing lie now. "No, that can't be true. Jake, I raised you. Your father would have said something." Jake clenched his fists, frustration pinching his features. "Grandma, it's not that simple. Dad was trying to protect us. He thought if he kept it secret, we'd be safe. But they've found us. They won't stop until they get what they want." The air grew thick with unsaid words, an unbearable heaviness pressing in from all sides. Sarah wanted to deny it all, but the reality of Jake's face, palpable anxiety, vulnerability glaring back, drowned her disbelief. The figure from earlier emerged in the hall, casting a long shadow, and Sarah's breath hitched in her throat. They strolled in with a casual air, as if stepping into a mundane situation rather than a storm. "Hey, we just wanted a little chat," the stranger said, their voice dripping with false charm. "Who are you?" Sarah managed, her heart racing. "Just a friend of the family." The figure smiled, but it didn't reach their eyes. "Now, Jake, why don't you let your grandmother come with me? It'll be easier that way." "Don't you dare," Sarah shouted, adrenaline surging through her body. Jake stepped in front of her, protective but trembling. "You don't have to do this. Just let her go." The stranger laughed, a cold sound that sent shivers cascading down Sarah's spine. "Ah, but this is what we want, Jacob. She is the key." "Key to what?" Panic erupted in Sarah. "Everything." It hung wordlessly in the air for a heartbeat, looming like the eye of a storm. In that moment, she realized it wasn't just her family. It wasn't just a fight for survival. This was something far darker, a hidden truth that threatened to consume them all. "Run!" Jake yelled, his voice a clarion call. But as they turned to flee, dread formed a lump in Sarah's throat. The front door swung open again, and a new figure stepped in, one she didn't expect. "Stop right there," a voice commanded, echoing with authority that sent chills down her spine. Was it her last hope, or was it just another trap? The truth was now hanging like a noose over them. What would it take to escape this nightmare? The door slammed shut behind the new figure, a tall shadow with a commanding presence. A chill swept through the room, curling around Sarah's heart like a vice. She couldn't see the person's face yet, but the silhouette alone was enough to draw her back to a fight-or-flight instinct she'd hoped she'd never have to grapple with. "Who the hell are you?" Jake shouted, stepping away from Sarah, protective but furious. The stranger took a step forward, the dim light casting a sinister edge to their features as they finally emerged from the shadows. It was a woman with sharp features and piercing blue eyes that seemed to bore into Sarah's soul. "I'm here to help," she said, but her voice was smooth and unconvincing. "We don't have much time. They are already inside the house." "Help? You expect us to believe that?" Sarah snapped, adrenaline crashing like waves against some unseen shoreline. "Enough." The woman raised her hand, and an unnatural calm fell over the chaos like a thick fog. Panic clawed at Sarah's throat. Jake was moving closer to the stranger, an unsettling trust brewing on his face. "What do you know about my dad?" The woman narrowed her eyes, glancing at Sarah before answering. "More than you could imagine, Jacob. Your father was a pawn, just like you will be if we don't move fast." Every bone in Sarah's body screamed at her to interject, to defend her grandson, but that primal instinct to unleash the truth curdled in her gut. "The cult has eyes everywhere, and they found us here. The connection runs deeper than blood," the woman continued, her tone urgent. "I've walked this path, and I can guide you through it. But first, you need to trust me." "Trust you?" Jake echoed incredulously. "We just met. What do you know that we don't?" The woman faltered, the weight of truth resting heavily in her expression. "Your family, Jake, it's cursed." "Stop," Sarah shouted, shaking her head as if the force of her denial could block out her words. "This isn't right. You don't know what you're talking about." But then she remembered her late husband's warnings, the things she had brushed off as old wives' tales, dark whispers fading away with the last light of dusk. "Listen to me," the woman pressed, her voice low and steady despite the chaos swarming outside. "They need you both. They will stop at nothing to extract what they want from you, your blood, your mind. It's why your father vanished and why they're here now." "I don't believe you," Sarah said, her voice trembling despite her resolve. "Do you have a better explanation for the strangers lurking outside your door?" A noise at the front of the house broke through their standoff, a thud, followed by the distinct sound of footsteps creeping closer. The outsider's eyes darted toward the sound, calculating, alert. "Now, we have no time," she urged, grabbing Jake's arm. "Follow me, and whatever you do, don't look back." Jake's wide eyes searched Sarah's for reassurance, and for a brief flicker, she saw not the boy she raised, but a young man entangled in something unfathomable. "Please, we need to go," he echoed the woman's desperate plea, voice trembling with an urgency that threatened to shatter her heart. As the footsteps grew closer, Sarah felt her mind racing. Was this truly their only option? The weight of her grandson's trust hung precariously in the air. She had to make a choice, and fast. "Okay," she breathed, feeling like her spirit could snap under the weight of their reality. "But if we do this, if we run, we can't look back." The sound of voices outside turned into a clamor. The window's curtains flapped violently, sending shadows dancing against the walls. "Go," she shouted, her voice a strained whisper, filled with both fear and fierce determination. They sprinted, escaping the kitchen and fleeing into the hallway. Just as they reached the door, the shadows split and figures spilled into the house like a tide. "Let us hope we're not too late," the woman mumbled, urgency crackling in the air. But as they pushed through the door and into the outside world, the true depth of the horrors awaiting them loomed. Ahead, the chase was just beginning, and questions still hung heavily in the air. What would happen when they found out the truths lying in wait? And who could really be trusted in this twisted game? The weight of impending chaos pressed heavily on their backs as they ran into the dark unknown. The night air was thick with tension as they lunged into the darkness, the sharp scent of damp earth filling their lungs. Sarah stumbled, her heart pounding, feet clumsy against the uneven gravel drive. Jake's hand found hers, squeezing tight as they ran. It felt almost comforting in this maelstrom of fear, but her mind raced with uncertainty. "Where are we going?" Jake shouted, glancing back. His face was a mask of concern, eyes darting toward the house, which now loomed behind them, shadows spilling from its windows like dark secrets. "We just need to get to the woods," the woman urged, her voice slicing through the wind. "They won't follow us there. At least not right away." "Who are they?" Sarah's voice cracked with desperation. "What do they want?" "A family reunion," the woman replied cryptically, glancing over her shoulder. "And you might not like the guest list." The words hung in the air, heavy and foreboding. Sarah had heard stories, whispered fears of dark gatherings and family betrayals, but she didn't want to believe them. As they raced through the overgrown backyard, branches clawed at them. The woman led the way, a specter weaving through the trees, but Jake hesitated, pulling Sarah closer. "What if she's wrong? What if we're running into a trap?" "I don't know, Jake," she snapped, her patience wearing thin with the fear creeping in around the edges. "But standing still will only get us caught. We have to trust her for now." With one last uneasy glance over her shoulder, Sarah's feet pounded the ground again, urgency fueling their escape. The cold drizzle began to fall, a fine mist that blurred their path ahead. The woods loomed dark and sinister, a vast void of uncertainty that promised shelter. The breathless chaos of their flight was interrupted by sharp cries, echoing behind them. The shadows from the house seemed to chase them, dancing in jerky bursts among the trees. "Hurry! This way!" the woman shouted, veering sharply to the right. They ducked into a thicket, its dense foliage pressing in on them. Sarah could feel her heart thunder in her chest, muscles straining against the overwhelming sensation of vulnerability. The woman crouched low, signaling for silence. Jake and Sarah fell into place beside her, their breath shallow as they strained to listen. Sarah felt the weight of her doubts churn inside her. What did this stranger know about Jake's father? What curses lay beneath their family history? She turned to the woman, ready to demand answers. But the urgency in the woman's eyes told her it wasn't the time. Suddenly, a rustle nearby snapped them into stillness. The distinct sound of footsteps pressed through the underbrush, accompanied by hushed voices, menacing whispers that twisted the air. "There! Over there!" one voice barked, followed by more hurried, gravelly voices. The shadows of figures darted through the trees just beyond their hiding place. "Stay quiet," the woman hissed, her gaze locked on the direction of the voices. Fear mirrored in Jake's wide eyes as he glanced back at Sarah, panic rising again. In the oppressive silence, Sarah felt the words bubble up, half-formed, desperate for release. "We have to know," the woman interrupted, her voice low and tense. "If they find us, it's over." They held their breaths as the voices grew closer, chillingly familiar. "We know you're out there," one of the shadows yelled. "We can smell you. This won't turn out well for you. Just give yourselves up." Jake's hand tightened around Sarah's. "What do they want from us?" he whispered, voice trembling. "I don't." Sarah's throat tightened, choking on the fear that engulfed them. But just then, a gust of wind rustled the branches, and in that precise moment, a familiar voice echoed from the darkness. "Mom. Jake. Where are you?" That voice, Sarah's heart fell cold in her chest. It was Jason, Jake's father. As their names rang out through the night, what she had held on to as truth shattered in an instant. Is that my dad?" Jake murmured, shock painting his face white. "Yes," the woman said slowly, her expression darkening. "But this may not be the father you remember." As they exchanged frantic looks, the shadows crept closer, and the tangled threads of love, betrayal, and terror spun tighter around them. The real test was about to unfold in the heart of the unknown. Who was truly hunting them? And would Jake and Sarah's fragile bond survive whatever truth lay in wait? The forest seemed to close in around them, shadows moving like restless spirits in the night. Jake's heart raced, each beat a frantic drum echoing in his ears. "What does she mean?" he whispered to Sarah, desperation lining his voice. Before she could respond, the woman emitted a low hiss that sent chills cascading down Sarah's spine. "Stay down. Don't make a sound." The darkness was saturated with unease, and as they lay hidden among the tangled branches, Sarah's mind spiraled. Jason's voice had been filled with worry, a child's concern for a parent. But if he was out here, what horrors awaited him? What did Jake's father become? Careful. The woman glanced nervously in the direction of Jason's calls. If he's found us trailing off, her eyes flickered, haunted. The whispering grew louder, inches from where they crouched. Come out, wherever you are. A voice taunted, resonating like gravel against a backdrop of rustling leaves. Goosebumps crawled across Sarah's skin, the word family echoing sinisterly in her mind. Why don't you come play with your father? Another voice jeered, an unsettling mockery that carried through the air. Every word sliced through Sarah like ice. Jason was out there, calling for them, yet they were trapped in a nightmare that threatened to consume them all. It's a trap, Jake murmured, shaking slightly. They're trying to lure us out. Exactly, the woman whispered back sharply, eyes darting. But we have to stay put and let him get closer to us first. If we rush out, it'll be the end. Sarah felt the weight of turmoil press against her chest. She wanted to shout for Jason, to tell him to run, but the terrifying reality of their situation dulled her voice. The forest fell into an eerie silence, then erupted into a cacophony of heavy footsteps and ominous laughter. Mom! Jake! Jason's cries came again, more frantic this time, stirring something deep in Jake. She could see his face contort with anguish as the glimmer of innocence faded from his eyes. Suddenly, a shadowed figure stepped into view, barely illuminated by the fading moonlight. Jason's silhouette shifted back and forth, scanning the dark. I heard you. Where are you? Now, the woman whispered. We go now? With no time to think, Sarah bolted, adrenaline pumping through her veins. She dragged Jake along as they burst from the thicket, running into the open space where Jason stood, confused and anxious. Jason! Jake yelled, but his voice was drowned in the depths of night. The shadows, who had been lurking just shy of the tree line, erupted forward, like wolves ready to pounce. They are coming. The woman screamed, pushing Jake towards Jason. Get to safety. What are you doing? Sarah gasped, eyes wide. I have to hold them off. No. Jake cried, but it was too late. The woman rushed toward the advancing shadows, her figure disappearing into the darkness, leaving just Sarah and Jake standing wide-eyed in horror. Mom! Jason shouted again, the realization of loss shifting over his features. But that would have to wait. The shadows were closing in, and peril approached like the tide. We have to move, Sarah urged, grabbing both boys' wrists. This way. They sprinted deeper into the woods, heart rates soaring as the sounds of pursuit followed. Branches cracked and leaves crunched underfoot, a deafening chorus that heightened their fear. Is she going to be okay? Jason choked out, his voice thick with worry. I don't know. Sarah panted in reply, a wave of dread pooling in her stomach. What awaited them in the deep dark of the forest? Were they truly safe? As they dashed through the underbrush, they reached a clearing illuminated by the moonlight, revealing something unexpected, a cabin, decrepit and twisted, standing alone like a sentinel of secrets. Wait, Jake's breath caught, panic slicking his brow. What is that cabin? I don't know, but it's our only option, Sarah urged, pushing through the anxiety. We can't stop now. But as they approached, the door creaked open slowly, inviting yet ominous, shadows dancing just beyond its threshold. What if it's a trap? Jason hesitated, glancing back toward the darkness. Just then, a whistle pierced the air, sharp and inviting. Come in, the voice echoed from inside, sweet and sinister. In that moment, the trio stood at the crossroads of danger and the unknown, a pivotal choice lingering in the air. Would they step into the darkness, or was the true danger awaiting them outside? There was no turning back now. As the cabin door swung fully open, a gust of cold air swept over Sarah, sending shivers racing down her spine. The darkness inside seemed to absorb the moonlight, creating a hollow void that beckoned them with false promises of safety. She glanced at the boys, their faces a mix of fear and resolve, and in that moment, they all shared an unspoken understanding. They had no choice. Ready? Sarah whispered, forcing a confidence she didn't feel. She grasped the boys' hands tighter, and they crossed the threshold together, stepping into the blackness. The interior was just as foreboding as the outside. Dust motes hung suspended in the stale air, illuminated briefly by moonlight filtering through cracks in the wood. As their eyes adjusted, They noticed cobwebs draping the corners like veils, shielding long-forgotten secrets. A chilling silence enveloped them, thick enough to taste. Where's the light? Jason's voice trembled in the darkness. What if Sarah pressed a finger to her lips? We need to listen. From somewhere deep within the cabin, muffled whispers slithered through the walls, jarring Sarah's nerves. Family. Family. The voices echoed, sinister and alluring. Each whispered word felt like a taunt designed to provoke their fear, spiraling her heart into a chaotic rhythm. We should go, Jake urged, his grip tightening around his brother's hand. No, we can't go back out there, Sarah exclaimed, panic clawing at her throat. We need to find something, anything that could help us. As they ventured deeper into the darkness, they found remnants of life once lived, splintered furniture, faded photographs, an old rocking chair that creaked eerily when they brushed past. Each creak seemed to awaken the cabin's memories, whispering caution and dread. Then, they stumbled upon a room at the end of a dimly lit hallway. The door stood ajar, an inviting contrast to the pervasive darkness. Sarah pushed it open, heart racing. Inside was a small bedroom, dilapidated, but somehow less unsettling than the rest of the cabin. On the wall hung a photo of a family, their faces painted in serene smiles, yet their eyes betrayed a sadness that seemed to ooze from the frame. Among them, a man with strikingly familiar features. Is that your dad? Jake asked, his voice barely more than a whisper as he peered closer. I think so, Jason replied, breathing unsteadily as he approached the image. But why does he look so sad? A sudden crash from outside made them all jump, and Sarah instinctively pulled the boys closer. We need to know. You have to see this, Jason exclaimed, pointing at another frame. Framed next to the family portrait was a strange sigil, clustered with scribbled notes outlining bizarre symbols and rituals. What is all this? Jake asked, staring at the unsettling markings. It's like some sort of spell, Jason muttered, brow furrowing. Look here. He traced a finger over the symbols, his breath hitching. It mentioned something about sacrifice and family. Just then, they heard footsteps approaching the cabin. The ominous laughter echoed again, chilling in its proximity. Hide, Sarah ordered, her heart racing. They ducked behind the bed, holding their breath as the door creaked open once more. Welcome home, a voice sneered from beyond the threshold, ripping through the stillness like a jagged knife. What do we do? Jason whispered, fear lacing his voice. The shadows loomed ever closer, igniting a fresh wave of dread. Sarah caught a glimpse of the intruder. The man's outline was indistinct but distinctly menacing, a figure from some lost memory, a part of Jason's past that should be never returned. The very essence of danger materialized before them, and it was eager to unravel their deepest fears. As fear surged, so did Sarah's battle for protection. Suddenly, the realization hit her. This was more than a family reunion gone wrong. There were secrets buried here, dark, horrifying truths waiting to be unearthed. Questions flooded her mind. What exactly had led them here? What awaited them behind these walls? In those chilling moments, Sarah understood. That escape would demand more than just running. It would require peeling back the layers of betrayal that had twisted their lives together. Stay close, Sarah whispered urgently. But the shadows had already begun their sinister approach, and she feared they might not all make it out alive. A new, terrified thought struck her. If they were really trapped here, who were they running from? And even more terrifying, where did that line of family truly begin and end? As the footsteps grew louder, an even darker truth lingered in the air. Would they be found, or had they already become part of something far worse than just a game? Outside, a single word sharpened against the darkness. Family. And within that grasp of horror, everything was about to change drastically again. The door creaked open wider, revealing the figure they had dreaded. A man with hollow eyes and a predatory grin stepped inside, each movement deliberate as he surveyed the room. The shadows appeared to meld with him, twisting around his form like a dark shroud. Sarah's breath hitched, and she felt the weight of her heart lodged somewhere in her throat. Come out, wherever you are. The man called mockingly, his voice a serpent's hiss. I know you're all hiding away, but this isn't a game. His laughter echoed, bouncing off the walls, wrapping them in a cocoon of unease. Jason whispered urgently, then grasped Sarah's hand tighter, almost white-knuckled. She could feel Jake's fingers tremble in her grip as they crouched low behind the bed, breath shallow and erratic. They were hunters, and now they were the hunted. Who is that? Jake's voice quivered, barely forming the words. They all shared a silent pact, not to speak unless absolutely necessary. I don't know, Sarah muttered, but a sickening familiarity twisted in the pit of her stomach. Somehow, she sensed this man was tied to Jason's past. He wore their shared history like a cloak, and that made him even more dangerous. The man moved closer to the bed, his boots creaking on the floorboards as they groaned beneath him. They didn't have much time. The air grew thick with tension, and Sarah's thoughts raced. There was something she could do, anything to distract him, to buy them a few precious moments. If only she knew how suddenly. The man paused, nostrils flaring as he took a deep breath, his smile morphing into a sinister grin. I can smell fear, and it's intoxicating. He leaned towards the bed, bringing his face dangerously close to theirs. Instinctively, Sarah held her breath, praying he wouldn't find them. A flicker of movement caught her eye. The family portrait still hung crookedly on the wall, taunting them. She glanced back at the symbols, her mind piecing together a memory that rushed to the forefront. The stories Jason had shared, fragments of his family history filled with paranoia and dark omens. Your father made mistakes, the man said, seemingly reading her thoughts. And here you are, part of this family's legacy. Don't you see? This is your birthright. What do you mean? Jason croaked, his voice cracking. The man straightened, his eyes alight with manic excitement. You have no idea what he truly did, how far he was willing to go to protect his family, the lengths to which he sacrificed. The words hung in the air like a foul cloud. Sacrifice? Sarah echoed, her mind whirring as she pieced the puzzle together. This man wasn't just a ghost from Jason's past. He was a reminder of their family's darkest secrets, a ticket to a truth that lurked just beyond their reach. Just think about it, dear boy. Your father underlined a promise with blood, and now it's your turn. His voice dripped with venomous delight. No, Sarah shouted, lunging forward instinctively to protect the boys. But the man only laughed, a sound that sent ripples of fear coursing through her veins. She had begun a war of wills, and now they were on a battlefield filled with treachery. Without warning, the walls of the cabin trembled as if responding to the man's sinister presence. Dust rained down as the whispers returned, swirling faster, louder, suffocating her senses. The shadows danced, closing in, and Sarah knew it was the calm before the storm. Who are you? She huffed, her voice firm despite her thudding heart. Defiance ignited a flicker of hope in her chest. They needed to stand their ground. Panic would not save them. Just a family friend, he replied with a mocking bow, his grin stretching wider. And you will learn how thick blood is when shadows beckon. Sarah felt a cold dread settle in her bones. The cabin held a darkness they had yet to understand, a family secret wrapped in deathly promise. She looked back at the boys, resolve etched on their young faces, their innocence threatened by the monster before them. With every heartbeat, that lingering question pressed harder. What exactly had Jason's father sacrificed to protect his family? And now, what would they have to sacrifice to escape this nightmare? As the man stepped closer, the temperature plummeted, the air thick with an impending storm. They had moments, barely seconds, before the darkness would claim them. The door slammed shut behind the intruder, sealing their fate. And with that, a new, terrifying truth clawed at Sarah's thoughts. If they survived tonight, they might emerge with knowledge that could tear their family apart once and for all. The air inside the cabin crackled with tension, the twisted shadows cloaking them in darkness. Sarah's heart thudded violently against her ribcage as the man's sinister laughter enveloped them. There was no turning back. The shadows wound tighter around their fear. A storm of betrayal brewed just out of sight. Don't listen to him, she urged the boys, their expressions a mix of dread and determination. We're more than this cursed legacy. What does he mean, Mom? Jason whispered, eyes wide with desperation, his voice quavering. It doesn't matter, she insisted, drawing in a shaky breath. We're not part of any darkness, we're a family. Together. The man leaned forward, his penetrating gaze boring into her. Family is a game of power, my dear. Those who don't conform vanish. His voice curled around her like smoke, thick and oily. Get away from us, Jake shouted, his fear transforming into strength. He took a step forward, standing beside Sarah. We're not afraid of you. The man's grin faltered for just a moment, surprised by their unity. But his dark candor quickly returned. Ah, so you think you can defy the bloodline? How cute. He dismissed them with a wave of his hand, darkness rippling like an omen across the floor. No, Sarah interjected, clenching her fists at her sides. You want to take my boys. With a fierce determination boiling inside her, she thought of all those vulnerable but precious moments they'd shared, a united front of love and laughter. They wouldn't be swallowed by this haunted legacy. In that moment, the curiosity of the cabin transformed. No longer merely a prison, it became a beacon of their shared strength. We have to break this cycle, she whispered fiercely. Our family doesn't belong in this realm of shadows. The man stepped closer, his voice dropping into a chilling whisper. What will you sacrifice to save your precious boys? He hissed, drawing closer yet again. Sometimes, one must pay the price to escape. Those chains of blood run deep. What chains? Jason blurted, the tremor in his voice revealing his mounting panic. What does this have to do with Dad? The man's grin twisted into a sneer. Your father was destined to lead, but he hid in cowardice. A coward who chose to run rather than embrace his powers. The weight of darkness poured over them, drowning her resolve. Had Jason's father really chosen to protect them by abandoning the family? A sick feeling knotting in her stomach made every breath taste like ash. Yet, she refused to fuel the flames of doubt. Enough, Sarah shouted, tearing through the tension with a voice fueled by motherly instinct. That's not who we are. We choose love. And as if the cabin itself breathed in response, a flicker of light flared from the symbols on the wall, illuminating the words scrawled like a warning across the room. With every pulse of light, she felt the shadows retreating, trembling at the intensity of their bond. Let us go, she hissed suddenly, grabbing each boy's wrist. We have to find a way out. The shadows recoiled as they scrambled for the door, heart pounding in unison, driven by fear and hope. The man growled, the darkness swirling around him, but their rush to the door was unstoppable. They burst through, tumbling onto the damp forest floor, freed from the dread that had threatened to consume them. Run, Sarah urged, their pounding hearts matching the frenetic rhythm of their feet. Behind them, the echoes of the cabin whirled in a tumult of screams and shadows. Yet they charged onward, propelled by love and united against the encroaching darkness. Their feet tore through the underbrush, urgency igniting their every stride. Dim moonlight filtered through the trees, guiding their way as they raced toward the safety of the open road. With each step, the weight of fear began to lift, and the familiar warmth of belonging surged through Sarah's veins. Jason turned to her, breathless. Do you really believe we can break free from this darkness? She locked eyes with him and nodded fiercely. Yes, together we can rewrite our story. Our legacy rests in love, not fear. As they stumbled into a clearing, the doubts that had haunted them for so long evaporated in the crisp night air. The shadows recoiled into the woods, but they pressed on. For the first time that night, they felt empowered not by their blood but by a stronger bond. The ties of family forged with unconditional love. And so, they ran, arms linked tightly, into the dawn of a new day, determined to forge their path away from shadows and toward the warmth of the sun. Family wasn't simply about blood, it was about heart, and theirs was unwavering. Now is your moment to take action. Whether you're moved by this story or simply can't wait for the next big adventure, you need to subscribe immediately to this channel. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep the good vibes coming. And don't just stop there, flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about how this journey ends. Lastly, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this epic conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. True fans understand the importance of supporting the channel, so let us do this together.